The auditorium at Liberty State University pulsed with energy. Students, professors, and townspeople packed every seat, drawn by a rare spectacle, a visit from President Donald Trump. Excitement buzzed through the air, tangled with skepticism. Some had come to cheer, others to challenge. All had questions. Among them sat Professor Elena Carter, Elena to her students, a literature teacher known for her empathy and quiet strength. She hadn't planned to speak, but the weight of her students' struggles pressed on her. Rising tuition, crushing debt, fractured families. Her classroom brimmed with stories of resilience, shadowed by despair. When the moderator opened the floor for questions, Elena's heart raced. Around her, her students' faces glowed with hope and exhaustion. She hesitated only a moment before lifting her hand, not out of defiance, but out of duty. The microphone reached her. Silence rippled across the auditorium. Trump's gaze found hers curious. Steady Elena stood. Her voice trembled, but only slightly. "Mr. President," she began, "what do you say to young people who feel forgotten, who work hard but see doors close in their faces? What do you say to those who believe the system was never built for them to succeed?" The question cut through the air like a blade. The audience stilled. Even Trump paused a long, deliberate pause that stretched across the room. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower than usual. "That's not just a question," he said. "That's a challenge, and it deserves more than a soundbite." The crowd leaned in. Elena didn't look away. "You're asking about something bigger than politics," Trump continued. "It's about trust. Trust in the idea that if you work hard, something good will come of it. And I know that trust feels broken." He looked over the students, his tone more reflective than fiery. "I've met coal miners who lost everything. Farmers fighting to save their land. Kids who feel invisible in their own country. I've seen that same pain in their eyes." He gestured softly toward the audience. "You feel forgotten because too many leaders made promises they never kept. I can't erase those years, but I can tell you this: no one is beyond hope, as long as they don't give up." The room shifted. His words were quieter than his usual rhetoric, almost tender. Before he could continue, another voice broke the stillness. A young man stood tall, nervous, his hands trembling. "Mr. President," he said, "my mom works 2 jobs, so I can be here. I'm studying engineering, but even after I graduate, I'll be drowning in debt. How can you say not to give up when the numbers are already against us?" A murmur swept through the crowd. Trump looked at the student, then at Elena, as though their voices had joined. "What's your name, son?" "Daniel," he replied. Trump nodded. "Daniel, your mother's sacrifice. That's what this country is built on. And you, standing here, speaking up, that's courage." Daniel blinked hard, his jaw tight. "I won't pretend the system isn't tough," Trump continued. "It is. Sometimes it feels designed to break you before you even begin. But here's the truth. You're already proving it wrong. You're here. You're fighting. Your debt doesn't define your worth." The room fell silent again, thick with emotion. Daniel's shoulders eased. Just slightly, Trump leaned into the microphone. "And remember, this real change doesn't always come from the top. It starts with people like you, people who refuse to stay invisible." The applause started softly, then grew. Something intangible had shifted in the air. Elena sat down, her pulse still racing. She hadn't expected gravity. She'd expected rhetoric, maybe defensiveness. But there had been a flicker of sincerity, and her students felt it too. Some nodded, inspired. Others crossed their arms, still skeptical. But all were thinking. For Elena, teaching was never just about books. It was about Liv's Jennifer, who dropped out because she couldn't afford tuition. Louise, who worked nights just to eat. Tonight, she had carried their voices to a place of power. Trump's words replayed in her mind. "Your debt doesn't define your worth." It sounded like something she herself would say, yet she knew words were easy. Action wasn't. She whispered a silent prayer. "Let this mean something." On stage, Trump adjusted the microphone again. His eyes swept the crowd, thoughtful now, almost softened. The atmosphere felt different, no longer a rally, but a conversation. "I've been asked many questions over the years," he said, "about policy, scandals, power, but this one, your question, Professor Carter, is different. Because it's not about me. It's about what we owe the next generation." A hush settled. Maybe I haven't always had the right answer, he admitted. Maybe I've been too focused on the fight in front of me. But the fight that matters most, the one that really counts, is making sure Daniel and every student here has a future worth fighting for. In that moment, the auditorium wasn't divided by politics. It was bound by something quieter, reflection, maybe even hope. From the back, another hand rose. Marcus, a senior in political science, sharp-tongued and outspoken, stood up. "Mr. President," he called, "you talk about hope and futures. But what about inequality? What about the kids who never make it here, too poor, too disadvantaged, born in the wrong neighborhood? Isn't the system already stacked against them?" The room tensed. Some clapped. Others bristled. Trump straightened, meeting Marcus's gaze. "You're right," he said simply. "Some kids never get the chance. And that's not fair. But life has never been fair. The real question is, what do we do about it?" Marcus crossed his arms. "So, what's your answer?" Trump leaned forward. "My answer is this. We stop waiting for someone else to fix it. We stop pretending politicians can do it alone. Teachers like Professor Carter change lives every day. Students like Daniel change families when they push through barriers. And people like you, Marcus, you can change communities if you lead instead of just criticize." The crowd erupted, some applauding, others murmuring, a few even cheering. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. Trump's tone softened one last time. "This country moves forward when ordinary people refuse to give up. That's the fight worth having." The applause swelled again, not thunderous, but genuine. And for a fleeting moment, the lines between politics, power, and people blurred. "You asked the hard question," Trump said, his voice steady. "And that matters, because asking is the first step to changing anything." Elena watched Marcus lower himself back into his seat. The defiance in his face was gone, replaced by something quieter, thought. The atmosphere in the auditorium shifted again. Subtle, but undeniable. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. Her mind drifted back to her classroom, where conversations like this unfolded every day, though never under lights this bright, never with stakes this high. She thought of her students' struggles, their exhaustion, their feeling of smallness against the world. She'd always urged them to speak up, to claim space, to believe their voices mattered. Tonight, they were doing exactly that. She remembered Jennifer, the student who'd dropped out. Her voice trembling the day she said, "No one ever listens to people like me." Elena had promised she would carry Jennifer's story forward. Tonight, she had kept that promise. Trump's words to Marcus echoed in her thoughts. Lead instead of just criticized, it reminded her of something she often told her. Literature students that great stories aren't written by those who watch from the sidelines, but by those who dare to act. And for the first time, she wondered if Trump realized he was delivering a lesson, not in politics, but in responsibility. Her students were witnessing something rare, their questions shaking the walls of power, that alone could change them forever. As if on cue, a woman stood in the middle, Rose, not a student, but a mother. Her eyes were tired, but her voice carried quiet strength. "Mr. Tremblingt," she said, trembling slightly. "He dropped out last semester. He couldn't handle the pressure. He works long hours now, but I can see he feels like a failure. What would you say to him?" The room fell utterly silent. Trump's expression softened. "Ma'am," he began gently, "I'd tell your son this. Success isn't about whether you sit in a classroom or not. It's about how much fight you have inside you. If he's working hard, he's not failing, he's surviving. And sometimes, survival is the bravest thing a person can do." The mother covered her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. "Tell him," Trump added softly, "he hasn't missed his chance. It's never too late to go back to school, to start something new, or simply to believe he's worth more than his doubts. He still has a future." Applause began, slow, quiet, then steady. Not the applause of politics, but of recognition. Elena looked around. Her students' faces were luminous, reflecting the moment's tenderness. The sharp lines that divided red and blue had blurred into something human, stories of debt, pressure, dreams, and endurance. For the first time that night, the audience wasn't thinking in terms of sides. They were thinking in terms of lives. Elena felt it deep within her. Her question had opened something larger than herself. Trump wasn't offering policy, but acknowledgement. And sometimes, acknowledgement was the beginning of change. Even Marcus sat quietly, scribbling notes, his expression thoughtful instead of combative. Elena's heart swelled. For once, politics had paused and humanity had stepped forward. Trump lifted a hand to calm the applause. "Let me make you a promise," he said. The room leaned in. "I can't promise to solve every problem. I can't erase debt or fix every broken system overnight. But I can promise thee